someone once said, and he was a technology leader, that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. That was Albert Einstein.
I'm a big fan of Edison. I'm lucky enough to live in North New Jersey, very close to his museum. I've been there a couple of times. And what I love about what he was able to do is there wasn't a lot before him to look back on. Like a lot of technology nowadays is looking at what somebody else had made and improving it and refining it.
How can the building support the care team? What if you change the question? What if the question instead was, how can the building become part of the care team? This whole thing about technology replacing the clinical team, it's not going to happen. And it's not something to strive for either. I think what we can do is remove burden.
Hello and welcome to BetterTech. I'm Colin McCarthy, here to talk to you today with Claus, who is the CTO of the University of Texas Medical Center. Welcome, Claus. Thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself. Give us a bit of history of who you are.
Thank you very much, Colin, and thanks for the invitation to join you. Let's see. Born in Denmark, so that my last name, Jensen. And I moved to the US in 2008. I've been in 3 industries, started in finance, spent 7 years in high tech when I came to the US, and spent the last decade plus in healthcare. I've had different kinds of jobs. I've been a chief technology, chief architect, chief digital, chief innovation, different kinds of sort of C-suite roles, and pretty much always looked for ways of making a positive transformational difference in life.
Right, yeah. It's I looked through your LinkedIn profile, and some of the companies that you previously worked with have some of the best technology platforms, I think, in healthcare, and certainly ones that I and my wife have made use of. Can you share a little bit about your vision when you're establishing sort of a new technology stack, certainly with your new role at the Academic Medical Center in Austin?
I think when you start any technology transformation journey, you really have to mindset yourself to say it's not really a technology transformation journey, because technology for technology's sake, in my opinion, doesn't really do a whole lot. Right? So what are you trying to do? Which almost always comes down to people. Right? So who are you trying to help? What are you trying to improve? What kind of effect are you trying to have on the world? Transformation is a funny word because you often use transformation for any kind of change. It's not actually appropriate because optimization is different from transformation. It's sometimes different from what you might call greenfield thinking. So it's kind of where I start, is what is the problem you're trying to solve? If you look at the jobs I've taken, I've sort of had the pleasure, privilege, whatever what you want to use, of being a little bit picky. So I've always looked for things that had 3 ingredients. One was that it had a meaningful impact on the world. The second one was working with good people. And the third one was a sense that I could make a unique difference. You don't always get to have that luxury, but I've been lucky, I guess, in my career. So why Austin and why building an academic medical center? Well, the easy answer is it's a city of 3 million or so people. If you take Greater Austin, it doesn't have one. It's the largest city in the US that does not have an academic medical center. And academic medical centers have a special role in the healthcare ecosystem, sort of orchestrate and organize much of the community. We don't have one in Austin. So that's the easy part. If you're just building another one, I remember what I said, the things that I choose for. If you're just building another hospital, like 17 others that have been built, probably not something I would have signed up for, because I don't think that I'm uniquely qualified for that. But this time around, it's a mission of how can you blend clinical science, technology, behavioral science, logistics on a foundation of data science to something that's different. And I'll give you a simple example. Usually when you build any kind of medical complex, you ask yourself, how can the building support the care team? What if you change the question? What if the question instead was, how can the building become part of the care team? It is an interesting tweak of the language, but it actually changes the conversation. And it starts asking questions around, well, what is the right fusion of digital intelligence and human intelligence? What does it look like if you can wire up a building to have lots of intelligent sensors and algorithms that actually know stuff about people? That becomes I think, a unique challenge. Doing that in an environment where we also have UT Austin, the larger sort of campus, which is a great research institution right next to us. Lots of what UT Austin in general does has to do with human health. So the opportunity to work with to broaden the campus and sort of progressing human health research is part of the opportunity.
Right. It's been fascinating to hear you say at the start of that all of this change isn't really about technology. It's that human aspect. That's I think as technologists, we know that making an IT change or an installation of a new technology is relatively easy. It is that human element, the change management part, which is the most complex and requires the most skill and attention, and where you really get those specialist partners or key people to help with that transformation. How do you have any guidance or stories from change that you've done in the past where you've been able to utilize I don't know, different forms of communication or you talked about looking at a problem differently with regards to, working with the nursing staff and the doctors when you're going through those transformational or even optimizational projects?
I think it's two things. You called out one of them. You used the word stories. And stories are very powerful. I sometimes describe myself as a technologist turned storyteller. That was a choice. You can choose to stay in your specialist mode, and that was where I was for a big part of my career. But at one point, somebody actually told me I was being rather stupid. Wasn't used to that. So it was like, okay, what do you mean you're being stupid? And it turned out that I was actually being stupid because I insisted on telling people truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. What's the problem with that? The problem is not everybody wants or needs the whole truth. Right? So if you show up just as a technology specialist, kind of overwhelm people. You might be a little bit scary, actually, right? Because there's a lot, and they will respect you for that, but they may not want to listen to you because it doesn't actually speak to the human part of the equation. So technology turned storyteller. I think telling stories is probably the most powerful thing you can do, and it has to be stories that resonate with people. I'll give you a simple example from my time at CVS Health/Aetna, which is, I was overhearing a conversation because I was learning what it looked like to serve the members between a clinical nurse and a member. Everyone knew I was there, so we didn't break any rules. There was consent and whatnot, right? But they're having a conversation about, he was a male about my age, so mid-50s, having a conversation about how was it going? Was he taking care of himself? It's kind of important because you got to take care of yourself. And it was the whole hemming and hawing, I'm trying and I'm doing my best, but it's hard, I'm busy. And the nurse who'd been in this job for a while sort of turned it to become very personal. They say, hey, what are you looking forward to? Well, I'm looking forward to walking my daughter down the aisle 2-3 years from now. She just got engaged. And then she sort of said pretty directly, well, let's talk about how you make that, because on your current path, I'm not sure you're going to make it. That mattered.
Right.
Because that was not about the science that said, hey, you really should. Right? This is about something very personal that this individual wanted to accomplish. And the nurse told him that we got to talk about that, right? Because on your current path, you're not in a good state. Doing that, making healthcare personal, making technology personal and resonating with people's desires and with their emotions, if you will. I think is the first part. And then the second part, you asked me, well, how do you not get stuck in what people have done before? I don't think there is a golden answer for that. Right? I think it comes down to keeping an open mind, always taking in information, not being afraid of saying, I don't know, asking people. And I think having a knack for asking good questions. Right? You can train yourself to asking open questions that don't lead with the answer, but are a little bit different. So I take very few things for granted when I address a problem. It's actually hard because in most cases you are colored by what you have learned before. So one of the hardest things to do is to put that aside.
It's interesting. I love how you talk about it. You're hardwired to be colored from the past. The brain is a wonderful autocomplete function. if it will give you the information you think you are expecting to receive. And I think it really is a skill to disconnect that. And when you're asking questions or even like surveys, I'm sure, a lot of surveys go out to staff and technology professionals when you're collecting information to doing a change or asking what they need. It's very difficult. And again, it's one of those skills that you have to have in your toolbox of being able to craft those surveys so that you're not leading them to the answer that you're expecting, and being very, very open and unaware of all the information coming in. It's, I've done a lot of medium-sized projects. I'm sure your projects are a lot more larger. So the ability to collect in all of that information and analyze it must be, one of those key skills that are needed.
I think it is. A long time ago, one of my executive coaches asked me, so, hey, what's your superpower? She didn't quite use that word. That was what you meant, right? What's your value statement? Actually, it took me about 6 months to get to a good answer. Guys, all I knew.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm really good at turning vision into action. She said, no, that's what you do. It's a great slogan. It's not actually your deep down value proposition. What is it, Klaus? And I didn't know. After 6 months, I got to the point that I'm just really good at synthesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maintaining situational awareness in a complex environment and synthesizing the most important parts of all the information coming at me. So, that's my superpower, and it's been very useful.
Yeah, I think a lot of IT professionals over the years have talked about sort of seeing the matrix and seeing, all of the different parts together, and how they interact, because everything is a giant Venn diagram with, hundreds of circles and shapes, and they all interact at different parts. Or, it's a giant cog machine, and you've got to make sure that all those cogs are aligned and working at the same time. And if you try and change one, it's understanding the ripple effect that it's going to have further down the line on another one. We talked about the human aspect and change. Obviously, with healthcare now, I think the is it right to say that the bridge between the technology they integrate and the care that they give is more seamless and integrated?
I think we're going there, but it's going to be a journey. It's also going to be a journey that happens at different speeds, right? Different speeds in different institutions, different speeds in different parts of the population, both on the patient side, but also on the provider side. I mean, different providers, different patients are comfortable with different things.
Uh-huh.
I don't actually think it's an either or. This whole thing about, technology replacing the clinical team, it's not going to happen. And it's not something to strive for either. I think what we can do is remove burden. We can shift the focus. We can get back to focusing on people. I'll give you an example. For the last, 30, 40, 50 years, right? We've focused on keyboards. It is about, entering information by keyboards. Well, what if that wasn't necessary? We're moving towards an environment where the room itself is intelligently wired. It'll pick up the conversation, and maybe we can focus on the human dialogue, right? And the system around us will just capture the information that needs to be captured. It's a very different view on what does healthcare look like. But this whole idea that we will replace the physician and, or automatons will do the diagnosis and prescribe the treatment. We have proved conclusively many times, right, in various studies that it's not about which one is better, because human plus machine is inevitably better together. One simple example is a machine learning algorithms are better at detecting the topology differences in an image of any kind,
Uh-huh.
whether that's a cryo-electron microscope image or just your usual X-ray. But humans are actually better at interpreting. I think it comes down to intuition. Machine learning algorithms are really good at computing and processing very large amounts of information and giving you a readout that says it is probably this.
Uh-huh.
But the actual interpretation, humans are better at that. That's the human intuition.
Yes, yeah, and it's great that you described all of that without using the letters of the day, which is the letters of every day of AI.
AI,
For those that were holding off taking a drink until the AI was mentioned, you can now take a sip. It's we all utilize technology to make our lives easier in business. Everybody's using note-taking in Zoom or Google Meet or Teams calls for transcription. transcribing their work calls. So yeah, why can you not, or when will we have an intelligent room that will know and to capture, the doctor speaking, the patient speaking, will be able to like the doctor will be maybe, infer maybe a medical issue based on the way they're speaking, sensors, obviously the smart sensors for breathing, virtually I can't remember the last time a nurse took my blood pressure and actually looked at her watch at the same time. It's all a machine doing all the heavy lifting.
I think the pieces are largely there. Most of them. I mean, don't get me wrong, they'll evolve and get better over time. Right? But we do live in a world where general sensors and very intelligent, specialized algorithms can tell us a lot, right, about the human physiology. I don't think that's actually the problem. I think the problem is retrofitting that into the human physical environment. So what does a future forward care model look like that has all of these things fused together in a meaningful fashion? Technology moves at a fast pace. Healthcare has historically moved at a much slower pace. There's a reason for that, right? Because the first rule of healthcare is do no harm.
Yep.
So why do we do clinical trials, and why do we have regulations and approvals? Because we got to make sure we do no harm. And the first states of a clinical trial is stage 1. It is this medication or whatever it is I'm trying to do won't harm you compared to the baseline. And then you go through, does it have a positive effect? But the do no harm sort of dynamic, we shouldn't change that, because we still need to be mindful of the fact that you can't get a do-over. If you do bad things to a human, can't go back and change it. So
yes.
There's actually a reason that we should do no harm.
Yeah, when we do our projects, there's always a column for the actions. How are we going to roll back this change? It is very difficult to roll back a change when you, as you say, when you are dealing with humans. Have you encountered any of the failed technology transformational projects where you have had to try and roll them back?
Look, I mean, every institution has projects that don't go quite the way you had expected.
What's the let's rephrase that and ask a better question then. What's the key lessons that you have learned from going through that would benefit our listeners who are at that point in their career where they have to be bold, they have to make those changes? Like I talk to a lot of IT professionals in my role. They all know that they should be doing something. A lot of them either don't have the skills, the support, or the time to make those transformational changes that they know they need to do. So what advice and guidance can you give to IT professionals?
So I once said, and this is with years ago, right? I was running a class about technical leadership for my own team. So it was an internal kind of session. And I said that great technical leaders lead through vision, conviction, and technical mastery. And I think that's the beginning of the answer, right? Because you need to have the courage to have vision. You need to have the courage of your conviction. By the way, that includes the courage to fail. Because it's like really hard to acknowledge, this is just not going in the right direction, and have the professional conviction that that's the right decision. Like, we've got to pull the plug, because this is just not going to accomplish what we said was the vision for what we were trying to do. All of which should be based on technical mastery. And I'm a believer in the more broad-based your technical mastery is, the better you judge you are of whether it's the right vision and whether we're on the right path to actually accomplishing it. Don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that we don't have a lot of need for specialists, because specialists are the ones that actually make stuff work. But we're talking about leadership. So in a leadership position, it's not about how deep your knowledge is, it's about how good your common sense is. And how good your value sense is.
Right. And are there any tech leaders from the past or present that sort of stand out to you as championing all of those values and skills? Or who do you most admire when you look back at technology leaders?
Let's go like really back in time. Someone once said, and he was a technology leader, that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration.
Yeah, I think I've seen that.
Albert Einstein.
I'm sure I've seen that on an inspirational poster somewhere.
But let's go back even further. Someone else, way before that, said, opportunity is missed by most because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. That was Thomas Edison.
Right. When I was asking that question, I was thinking to myself, who do I really like? I'm a big fan of Edison. I'm lucky enough to live in North New Jersey, very close to his museum. I've been there a couple of times, and what I love about what he was able to do is there wasn't a lot before him
No.
to look back on. Like a lot of technology nowadays is looking at what somebody else had made and improving it and refining it. But he was, one of our sort of pioneers of charting and creating
Sure.
stuff in a whole new arena. Something as simple as records and the ability to listen to music.
Absolutely. If we were to pick a third one, I'm going to call out Stephen Hawking. Terrible disease he was suffering from for most of his life. But he had so much conviction that what he had to give to the world was valuable that he kept going until the very last moment. It takes courage. Spending your time on science when you are in that kind of situation, I got a lot of respect for that.
Very good, very good. Lastly, I want to switch and ask a question about yourself and how you interact with technology. What is your most favorite productivity tool or app? What do you most enjoy interacting with and working with?
Productivity tool or app? Does it have to be at work?
No. It can be outside as well.
I think outside, and this is a simple thing, right? I travel a lot. I've traveled a lot for a lot of years, so I love my Kindle or any book reader really, because instead of bringing a paper book, then you can have this little device that lets you bring 10 or 15 or 20. It's a simple thing, but it matters a lot in that kind of scenario. Is it a productivity tool? Not really, right? But it's one of the things that make life easier. I think things that make life easier are worthwhile. At work, just the ability to have a dialogue like we're having now. I mean, we're thousands of miles from each other, and yet we can have a meaningful live conversation. I think that's gold.
Yeah, I think all of the tools that allow for remote work and this collaboration is amazing. I've been using video tools for more than a decade and worked and managed with remote teams, and it's we just take it for granted, but when we look at the technology, it's amazing, regardless of what you're using.
When I was growing up and I was at college, right, email was new. Think about that. I'm getting old.
Yeah. I started with dial-up and using a CompuServe account, and there was attempts for video conferencing. Microsoft had NetMeeting. I had a very expensive, very poor quality video camera, but there was nobody to talk to. So let's very, very final question before we go today. We've talked about your changes in technology, the vision of going through those changes, how it's going to interact with humans and medical staff and the buildings. So you talked about applications you like. What's the one piece of technology that you hate and dread interacting with?
Hate and dread interacting with.
While you think I will tell you it's printers. I hate printers. In a corporate environment, they're an absolute nightmare to deal with.
Yeah, well, that is true. I don't know that there is actually any particular piece of technology that I hate interacting with. I mean, most technology is not necessarily in the way. If I were to pick one, it's probably the electronic queuing systems that you find in some places. And the reason I hate interacting with them is they're just so dumb. They give you a number, but they don't actually tell you anything useful in terms of how many people are before you or how long you should expect it to take. So the reason I hate them is because they were well intended, but they're incomplete. So if you take it to things that I generally hate interacting with, it's stuff like that. I mean, well intended, right idea, but just dumb implementation, and you didn't get to the point where it's actually useful.
Yes, yeah, we all hate calling up a company and then just having to say agent, agent, and then the automated thing saying, "Oh, please tell us more, more information about why you want an agent." And you say it, and they say,
and you try to game the system to get to a person.
And then they say, "Oh, you could do that on the website." It's like, no, I want to speak to a human. The website's not working. Hopefully AI and all of the other enhancements that are coming and in development will make some of that easier. It is all about frictionless IT. But Claus, it's been great to talk to you for the last 20 minutes about your career and view on technology. Any last thoughts before we end?
I think the last thought would be know yourself, know what matters to you, know what you're good at, and then go for something that looks like that.
Excellent. Very wise words. Well, thank you again. This has been the BetterTech podcast.